is a vinyasa flow for an apparently healthy person. It's not necessarily what I do in yoga therapy, but I think sometimes when we're healthy and things aren't bothering us, it's nice to have a flow. Over the last 12 years, I have written very many. I was just overwhelmed when I looked at my folder on the inches of thickness that I have. And when I first started, I thought, oh, I'm not gonna be able to learn anything else. This is it. But I continue to learn, and the more that I learn, the more I think I don't know. And so I'm going to go back through and kind of reminisce on all of those sequences that I've written, and just put them out there for you to practice with, and to see what that's like for you. And going through those papers, I came across this thing that I love, and I love that I'm a bit of a piler more than a filer, and so when I just was looking at 6 inches or so of yoga sequences that I've written out and taught throughout the years, I came across this paper that I had jotted down, and I just want to share it with you. It says, "I'm not limited in my ability to grow, to earn, to command, to connect, to empower, to enjoy. Nothing can stop me from empowering my clients to make better nutritional and lifestyle choices." Now, I don't have a date on there, so I'm not sure when I wrote this, but I know it had to be before 2015. And it really just was a nice reminder of my own words and thoughts to come back and remind me of exactly why this is my life's passion. So today, to practice, you'll need a mat, and if you have 2 blocks nearby, that's great. You could also use a chair, and make sure the chair is on the sticky pad. But if you have 2 blocks, it might be nice to have those. Not a deal breaker for the practice, but may perhaps bring you a little bit more ease. And remember, props help you find more work, not less work. So begin to lay down on your back in constructive rest position. And as you're finding that there, I'm just going to set the tone or the theme for today's practice. I want you to know that everyone, no matter their age, their level of experience, can do yoga. And as many of you know, as a yoga therapist, I facilitate yoga at the bedside. Well, this practice isn't for that. It absolutely, a lot of aspects can be brought. So there's this wide range. And while I'm doing this for an apparently healthy adult, I want you to know that you could always come see me and learn how to adapt the yoga philosophies, yoga poses, and tools specifically to you. Flexibility isn't the ability to do difficult poses. It's not the most important thing while you're doing a yoga practice, right? You don't have to already be flexible to come to yoga. But the most important component of a yoga practice is the awareness of your body and your breath. So if you get into a particular pose and there's no breath, we're not in the pose, right? If we lose our concentration between poses, we're not in our awareness, we're not in our practice. So with awareness comes control. From that control comes grace and beauty. And it's from that humble beginning of grace and beauty that's where we carry ourselves with elegance, with poise. And that's where our practice really comes from. So I want you to know that this is an individual practice. Your body doesn't have to look exactly like mine. It's okay. There are many different variations of human beings. It's not a competition with another family member in your home or a friend in another home that maybe you're talking to, right? What's important is that you listen, that you check in with your body throughout the practice, that you pay attention to your own body, those subtle differences and changes that are coming up. That breath is always there, right? You're carrying that breath with you. Notice how your tissues are being stretched, how some of the joints are being strengthened. Noticing these things is a sign of advanced yoga. It's not standing on your nose. It's these subtle things that when we practice with attention, really make our practice, sweet. All right, so enough of that. Let's go ahead and I have a sequence that we'll move through. We'll just see where it takes us today. All right, love yourself. Here we go. So we're finding that constructive rest position, knees bent, arms at the side. There's some space between the arm and the torso. The feet are nice and heavy. And we're just imprinting and noticing our natural breath. I'll give you a moment to do that. Let's begin to lift one leg up, then the other, taking hold behind the knees. We'll come into knees to chest, give yourself a little hug, or actually getting on your mat, and rocking just a little bit. Now let's circle those ankles, and we'll reverse the direction, and we'll point and flex. And holding that neutral spine where the pelvis is nice and heavy. We're honoring the curves in both our lumbar spine and our cervical spine. We'll begin to move into alternating knees to chest. So as you extend one leg out, it's as if you're going to press an elevator button with your big toe and pull it back in. And then we'll switch. So you can extend that leg out on the exhale. And draw this in on the inhale. And again, we want to only hit one elevator button. We don't want it stopping at every single floor. So just being mindful that the foot goes out to one point in time. So we'll do one more on each side. And we'll bring the feet down about a fist distance in between the pinky side of the hands down, and the shoulder blades are underneath us. We'll begin to lift the hips up into bridge, feeling that length from shoulders to knees. And then see if you can return the vertebrae to the mat like you would return a strand of pearls to your jewelry box. And then you'd inhale, lift it back up. And then you'd roll it back down. All four corners of the feet are staying engaged with the mat. You're standing in your shoulders. You're off the spine. Let's do one more. Great, so we'll bring a little heat to our abdominals. Let's bring our hands on the neck. Arms are nice and long, our elbows are nice and wide out to the side.
If the elbows are touching the mat, that's great. You can get a nice passive stretch. If they're up a little bit, think about broadening and let gravity take effect to get a nice shoulder stretch there. We won't be here too long. You'll take a nice deep inhale and you'll nod your chin, head nod, right? Nod the chin towards the chest, and then start to come up and gaze at the belly button. Notice how the elbows are wide still, and when you have the need to breathe, you lengthen the spine out. And then nod the chin to the chest and exhale, lifting up, gazing at the belly button while you get rid of all of that air. And then inhale, lengthen from tail to crown of head and all the way out. And see how you did with maintaining those arms nice and wide. We're just creating a little hammock for the neck. Okay, we'll do 2 more here. And we'll bring the arms nice and long at your side. Now, heel toe out and find the edge of your mat. And once your foot's in the edge of that mat, let's begin to gently do some twists. So it's like you're windshield wipering the legs. And we're doing it still with purpose and breath. Perhaps inhale, bringing them up, and exhale, bringing them to a side. Good, and then once you feel equal, coming back together, heel toeing those feet back in. Now let's begin to inhale, lift up into bridge one more time and really stretch out the abs that worked so hard for you just a moment ago. And then slowly bringing it back down. Good, so let's bring one arm up and over the head and roll to that side. Pushing yourself up. Let's begin to get into an all fours position. So we want the knees underneath the hips, the shins down, the pinkies out at the edge of the mat. So we have a starfish hand. The elbow creases are facing in. We're in that quadruped position. We'll start to move into cat and cow. So we want to start at the tailbone and really focus on that lower back. And you're gazing into the center of the body. And then again, starting at the tailbone, and now really sink that chest down and lift the head up and through. Again, starting at the tailbone, feeling those low abs work to engage. And then tilting the tailbone up, being patient enough to wait for each and every vertebrae. I like to think of the arms and the legs like pillars to a bridge, and then my spine is the rope bridge that moves and flows with the wind. And then coming back to that neutral spine. So from here, let's begin to curl the toes under. We'll lift into downward facing dog. And I want you to take a wide stance in downward facing dog. So let the pinky toes be out at the edge of the mat. And then begin to push back. So you're in this inverted V. You're pressing into your index finger and your thumb. Remember, this isn't about getting the heels to the floor. It's about creating nice length. Maybe you even want to walk the dog, so you pedal the feet a little bit. Are you still with me? I hope so. Downward facing dog is a resting pose. I remember when I first started, I thought, rest? You've got to be kidding me. All right, so now begin to walk forward into forward fold. And what I'd like you to do is, if you have a block, I want you to bring the floor up to you. So we have about a fist to 2 fist distances between the feet. We have them straight. We can see that straight line from heel to pinky toe. And we're just going to relax. And remember that blocks have different heights, right? Those heights are there to help you, to support you. Maybe nod your head yes to the practice. Note any tension that may be in the body. And then slowly walking your hands up the legs into a standing position. So let's talk about mountain pose. I'll turn this way so that you can see me. And we'll build it from the floor up. So we have weight into the big toe, the pinky toe, both sides of the heels. The kneecaps are drawing up the legs. Good, your glutes are engaged. The tips of the shoulder blades are drawing back slightly, and you can feel the rib cage sitting right over top of the hips. And then take that head and bring it back over top of the heart. Allow the heart to lead and the mind to rest. And the arms just fall wherever they will. The palms are facing the thighs. And let's focus on the strength in mountain. Now we'll take a wide stance on our mat. And mats are length for a reason, so you want to take nice long strides. And the toes are pointing to the long corners of the mat, so that when I come down into a squat, my knees go right over those second toes. They're not falling in, right? These is engaged to keep them open so that I can still see my big toe as I come down and I come back up. So now let's bring the arms up. And as we sit back into this squat, the elbows come into the rib cage. And then we push off our feet, we feel the inner thighs work, the glutes come together, and we stretch up into the stars. And then we slowly bring it back down, feeling that mid back engage as the arms come down. And then inhale back up, and exhale all the way back down. You guys are doing great. You're probably excited to be moving. Okay, now we'll move into sunflowers. So the arms will come out to the side, we'll come down, we'll scoop towards the floor, and then reach the arms up, and feel free to work those eyes by gazing the eyes down towards the floor and up towards the ceiling. Remember, your head stays above your heart above your hips. Good, we'll do one more here. And we'll bring the hands into the heart, and we'll step up into mountain pose. Good, for mountain pose, we'll keep that curve in the back, and we'll begin to hip hinge, keeping the curve, keeping the curve, keeping the curve. My knees are soft. And then finally, as I start to lose the curve, and let everything come down into that forward fold. Loving my hamstrings, sending them some love. And then I'll step back into downward facing dog. So again, I want to take that wide dog, hips up. Good. Feel how it might have changed a little bit from a moment ago. And then slowly bring the knees down to the mat and sit back into mountain or into child's pose. In child's pose, my arms are extended. I'm in extended child's pose, and I'm really pushing the mat away. That helps to bring my hips down towards my heels. It's still very active. And as I look between my legs, I don't see my feet, right? My knee and ankle and toes are all in alignment. All right, so if you have that book or a block, it's about the length of your forearm. So we can use this as a marker to help us learn how to do kneeling plank and kneeling crocodile. It's a good marker to help us stay engaged, especially when we're first learning. There's a lot of fear of, I'll fall on my face, and so the prop being there can help give you some sense of safety while you practice. So from this extended child's pose, I have my block in between my hands. I'll begin to shift my hips forward, and I'm in kneeling plank. So at this stage, my pelvis is tilted. It is tucked. It's in a posterior tilt. The elbow creases are facing each other. I have weight in my my index finger and my thumb. So I'm really using all of my digits. My abdominals are engaged as well. Now if I want to move into crocodile, those elbow creases will turn towards my index finger, and I'll bend my elbows so that they're skimming my rib cage. I'll come down and tap my breastbone on the block, and then I push the floor away. So we'll flow between kneeling plank and kneeling crocodile. And now let's curl those toes under, and we'll lift back into downward facing dog. Now let's begin to walk forward towards the hands, coming to that forward fold, and bring the hands onto the thighs, and begin to let the hips sink back, and reach those arms up into chair pose. And then all the way up, bringing the hands down to the heart center. And perhaps you're hearing some children that are outside playing on the river walk that's just outside our studio. So just in case you're wondering what that is, I'm grateful that they get out and get some nature on a family walk. All right, so let's move into a sun salutation of sorts. Sun salutations in yoga are done typically in the morning, facing the sunrise. And it's said that they help you get rid of any fear that you may have and to really welcome the day. That's the importance of facing the sun as you do those. All right, so let's come into mountain pose. We'll keep the block. We'll be adding, you've done all of the exercises except for one, a lunge. We've already gone over those. So we'll be adding that as a new exercise. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. So let's go ahead and start with sun salutations. So I'm going to start up here at the top of my mat. Good. And I like to add a sweep. So I'll sweep the arm up and then bring the hands down through the heart center. Soften my knees, keeping that curve and my back for as long as I can. And then moving into my forward fold, I'll step back into my downward facing dog. I'll lower the knee and come into extended child's pose. Then I'll begin to shift forward into kneeling plank. Come down into that kneeling crocodile. Back up into the kneeling plank. Curl the toes under, lift into downward facing dog. Now I'll begin to bring one foot forward. So I'll lift my knee up towards my chest and place it forward. Now if it was difficult to get it there, feel free to use a hand to help you bring it forward. There's my lunge. And now I step forward and I'm in forward fold. I come all the way back up and I sit back into chair. And we'll go again. We'll inhale up. We'll exhale, keeping that curve in the back as we fold into forward fold. We'll step back into downward facing dog. And coming into child's pose. From here, we'll begin to shift forward into kneeling plank, taking it into that kneeling crocodile. Back up into kneeling plank, curl the toes under. Downward facing dog. Bring that knee up into the chest, step it forward, into that full lunge. Go ahead and step into forward fold. Bend those knees, coming all the way up into mountain pose, and sitting out into chair. Good, so that's the start of a sun salutation, and you might notice that your breath gets a little faster. You may also notice that some heat rises and the heart rate increases. I like to joke around and say it's the cardio version of yoga. The pacing, which you might not be able to see because I'm trying to talk you through what would be a personal practice, because I don't have any bodies in front of me, which is quite different for me. But it's one breath, one movement. So because I need a breath, whether it's the in-breath or out-breath, my body flows with that breath into a next pose, if you will. It's the guide that takes you. All right, so now let's come back to mountain pose. And so again, I'm finding my very best posture of mountain pose. And I want to think about first working on the right side of the body. So my right side stays engaged, and I lift my right arm all the way up, and I'm going to keep my ear and my arm together. While I'm reaching my fingertips up and I'm pressing down into the earth on the right side, I'm creating all of this length over here. And if you'd like, you can bring your hand across, and as you inhale, feel how the in-breath expands into your hand. Let's do 2 more breaths here. And then drawing it all the way down. Now before we rush off to the other side, just check in and notice. What do you notice from one side to the other? Okay, so now preparing for the other side, you'll really engage that left foot into the earth. I'm going to put my ear and my arm together. I'm going to stretch up, pushing down to reach up. I'm going to come across and see if I can feel that breath. slowly bring that back down. Now let's begin to roll the shoulder blades up and together and imagine that you're squeezing a giant beach ball behind you. It's just the start of spring when I'm recording this, so I'm thinking of summer. And then releasing that out, giving it a little shake. All right, so let's go back to the short edge of the mat. If you're not already there, I'm gonna go back to the short edge of my mat. All right, so let's step back with the right foot and take a giant step back. So that back heel is down, all 10 toes are facing the short edge of the mat, and I'm leaning forward as far as I can keep this back leg engaged. I am in a back bend here, and that's okay. Warrior One is a closed hip posture. You can bring your hands to the heart center, maybe cactus arms or goalpost arms or straight up. So lots of options there for you to pick what you want. I think today I'll go here so that I can still look back and connect with you. And we'll stay here for 5 to 7 breaths, really feeling everything work. And then as we're ready to come out, the back toes will, the heel will come up, and we're going to push off that back toe to step forward. Good, so now let's try it on the other side. Taking the same amount of care. I know that one side can feel slightly different from the other. That's okay. There's no judgment. And then stepping that up and forward as well. All right, so that was Warrior One. Let's move on to Warrior Two. So I like to come into this a little differently. I'm going to place my block actually off to the side so you can see. So I have one foot forward and my second foot back. So the toes on the back leg face the long edge of the mat. The toes on the front face the front edge of the mat. Now look at the width of your big toe. For the back foot, I'm going to move my heel out that amount. For the front foot, I'm going to move my toe out that amount. Now I'm going to think about sinking my pelvis down towards the mat as I come into that, and reach the arms up into opposite directions, as if someone's playing tug of war on either side. This is an open hip posture, and Warrior Two. Now to come out of it, I'm going to push down and bring myself straight back up. To go to the other side, just turn those feet, taking the same amount of care to find the same thing on the other side. And when I look down over this knee, I can see my big toe. And then bringing the hands back, pressing up, and I'll step one foot in and then the other, coming back to that mountain pose. And I like to just take a moment to check in, again to notice how it may or may not be changing. Feeling better. too. All right, so tree pose. We'll do a variation of it today. So let's ground into the right foot so that the kneecap's lifting up, that right glute's engaged. And we'll turn the other knee out to the side wall so that the ball of foot's on the floor and your heel is just above the ankle. And again, all of this right side still stayed engaged. Bring your hands to your heart and already notice those muscles maybe in your ankles that are working to stabilize you. Let's see if we can grow some branches. Bringing the arms up and out. I happen to be looking at a window right now, so I get to see beautiful trees that I'm embodying, thinking about their wisdom. How a bamboo blows in the wind, a willow tree blows in the wind, and an oak tree is firm. And so in a storm, you tend to see an oak tree toppled over, and the willows will just continue to bend with that storm as needed. Let's begin to bring the hands back down through the heart and release it down, going back to that mountain pose. Checking in. All right, so we want to do the same thing on the left side. So again, make sure that, I tend to want to keep my weight all on my pinky toe. So I have to really think about putting weight into my big toe. Perhaps that's you as well. And then you're engaging that glute. The knees going out to the side wall. Good, I'm drawing into the center so my inner thighs are engaged. Have my hands at my heart center. I'm checking in to see how's balance different on this side than the other side. And then I start to grow it all the way up and reach the branches out. And then slowly drawing it back down and into tree. And I will say some of you have been practicing with me for a while, so you've already seen my Essential Yoga Series poses. If you're new to this, by all means, you could go back to my YouTube channel, Medicate with Movement, and look at those essential yoga poses. Get a little more instruction. It's still not all-inclusive to everything, but you'll get just a little bit more of benefits, pros, cons, little tips to refine those. All right, so we've done our work, we've done our balance, we've warmed up. Let's just start to cool down and prepare for our meditation now. So we'll come back to the top of our mat here. We'll come into that forward fold, softening that curve, right? Keeping it, and then letting it go. And we'll step back into downward facing dog. And noticing perhaps how it's changed. We're bringing the knees down and sitting back into extended child's pose. Just allowing all of our energy to go inward. And now let's stack our fists one on top of the other and rest our forehead. Really feel the breath moving into your back, into your sides. And then you'll sink over onto one hip and bring the feet around. And you'll draw one leg up and in. Now on the leg that's still on the mat, the toes are facing up, they're straight across. I'm going to take this sits bone and move it back just an inch. Reach out for those toes, wrap around, bring the arm up, a seated spinal twist. And remember, in the seated spinal twist, we're trying to create length up and through the spine. And then you'll slowly draw yourself back, and we'll switch those legs out. So So again, I really take care of setting this leg up. I let that sits bone come back just a little bit. I reach forward and I take the turn. And then slowly bringing yourself back, one vertebrae at a time. All right, so now I'm turn this way. You don't need to, but I'm going to turn so you can see me. We'll come into butterfly pose. So it's like the feet are kind of praying, they're together. And I like to bring my hands above the ankle instead of pulling on the feet. There's 25% of your bones and muscles live below the ankle, and our feet work so hard for us. So I just like to hang on here and sit up nice and tall, because the movement forward comes from the hip joint. So if you already feel an inner thigh stretch, there's no need to go anywhere. So I want you to find your version of meditation. Many of you have worked with me on a meditation pose. It can be simply as laying on your back. You can lay on your side, on your belly. But now's the time to grab a blanket to cover up. If you have a hand towel to put over your eyes, that's even better. You want to be able to be warm and to create a dark environment while you have this practice. So now that you're there, I just want you to focus in on your natural breath. Remember, in natural breath, we're not trying to change anything. We're simply becoming aware of the coolness of the in-breath as it comes in through the nose, the warmth of the out-breath as it goes across your upper lip. Now that you've noticed your natural breath, I want to start to create an equal in-breath and an equal out-breath. And it doesn't matter what your number is. It could be something between 1 and 8, in either way. I'll just pick the middle ground 4 to key you through, but please don't get hung up on the example that I give you. Please extend that breath to the equal length that's right for you. So exhaling to prepare. Inhale for 1 Om, 2 Om, 3 Om, 4 Om. Out 1 Om, 2 Om, 3 Om, 4 Om. In 1 Om, 2 Om, 3 Om, 4 Om. Out 1 Om, 2 Om, 3 Om, 4 Om. In 1 Om, 2 Om, 3 Om, 4 Om. Out 1 Om, 2 Om, 3 Om, 4 Om. Continue with this for 5 more rounds.
And today I want to take a journey through the forest. And I want you to imagine that you have a special space in that forest. You see this huge old stump that's now lined with soft ferns. And you lay a special blanket down on those ferns, on that stump. And you begin to lie back. This is a place where you can feel relaxed. As you look up, you can see the sunlight filtering through the trees. Your face is warm. You see those rays of sunlight. And you see a beautiful eagle soaring above you. And you imagine, what would it be like to fly, to soar, to look down on the forest. And you begin to imagine that you are the eagle. You see yourself lying there, looking up with this gentle and peaceful smile on your face, watching the eagle. You are the eagle looking at you. Begin to wiggle those toes and fingers. You start to deepen your breath and turn your attention back to the room that you're in when you're ready. Know that you're not being rushed. You can stay longer. I'll just leave now so you can rest as much as you need. The light me honors the light me